You are listening to the Novel Writing Podcast, episode 186. I'm your host, Colleen Mitchell. Grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Today I'm talking with Greg Keogh, an engineer and one of the founders of Curios. He spent the last 5 years working in the digital content space, specifically surrounding digital rights management. Prior to Curios, he worked at a digital agency that specialized in digital content solutions. Greg is an avid reader and is passionate about changing the way authors can earn in the digital era. And Curios, which we'll talk about today, is a platform and marketplace where authors can sell their ebooks or audiobooks directly to their readers. Authors keep 100% of every sale, and they can own the contact information for anyone who purchases or claims their book. I met Greg at Author Nation last year, and though it took me a while to get my books onto Curios, as soon as I did, we reconnected. And so I am really excited to be talking with Greg today about how authors can take control of their direct ebook sales. So, Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's not that I forgot, but about when we met. But yes, it was funny because I had Colleen's card on my desk for almost an entire year. And I think you probably had the same thing. And then when you
Yeah.
finally upload, I saw the upload go through and I was like, oh my gosh. Well, first of all, great. I have one less item on my to-do list because you you did it for me. It was really nice. But yeah, that was pretty fun when it came through. I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Well, it had been sitting on my desk for so long because I was waiting to update the interiors of my first two books before I did it. And I finally got around to doing that. I'm like, might as well just do it now.
I know, it's so funny. Yeah, mine was the same thing. I was just like, okay, I need to do this. Oh, and then something else pops up, and it's just like, yeah, it falls away. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I still have the rest of the cards that I got at Author Nation on my desk. They're kind of
I
sad right
still
now.
have a few of them too.
All right, so let's talk about Curios. How did Curios start, and like what do you do slash offer for creatives?
Yes. So I'll start with the first part of the question, which is how did we start? We started as a digital agency, so it's kind of a little bit of my bio. But we were a digital agency, again, focused mainly on digital rights management, which all that means, it's fancy terms for ensuring the right person has access to digital content. So if you're going to sell digital content, you want to be sure that only the buyer has access. If that's not the case, then you have all the piracy issues that have kind of led creators down the route that we're on now, and I can kind of get into that a little bit later. So essentially, we were specialists in this area. We worked for a lot of major companies, YouTube, Google, Spotify, some TikTok competitors, just kind of making sure content's being shown in the right places, content's not being stolen or ripped, everything's encrypted, things like that. We're specialists in those areas. In that process, we basically discovered like, okay, there are these huge holes in the market. And the major holes are that all creators have to be funneled through some major organization to get their content out there. And we started out in music, and it was basically like, okay, if you have an album, how do you sell your album now? It's not as simple as you think. It's like, you think, okay, if I own the music, I should be able to sell it online very quickly and easily. And we looked around and was like, this is just not the case. Like even to get it up on an Apple Music or something was this humongously long process of uploading and setting your rights and all these different pieces. And so we're like, okay, this is really interesting that there's such a huge hole here. And then that has then kind of exploded into all digital content. We realized that hole persisted not just for musicians, but it was for authors, for comedians, for indie filmmakers. There's just not a lot of options, despite the internet being such an amazing platform for distributing content. So it's just one of those things where we're like, okay, there's this huge hole here. So being experts in the space, we were like, we can do two things. The first one is we can demonstrate our agency really well. So we can kind of basically have a billboard for our agency. This is the original idea. It's like, well, we can showcase the power of our agency, how well we can, incorporate our digital rights management technology out in the wild with this living idea. And then what happened very quickly was that idea turned into a nice business. So it wasn't necessarily overnight, but it was about 1 month in. We were contacted by a rapper, Flow Rider. He was representing a company that was trying to get artists to go more direct. And he had a rapper named Tory Lanez who wanted to sell his album direct. He had just finished like years-long battle with his management, and he has management and record label. And so he has the rights to his music again. And so he wanted to release something direct to his fans, found our platform, released his album, sold 1 million copies in 6 days for $1 a pop. So he made 1 million. As you kind of mentioned, our platform gives 100% of the sale. So he made $1 million and he had a team, right? So he and his team made $1 million in 6 days, vastly eclipsing any money he's made. I mean, he's a very famous musician. He was on tour for years. He had like double gold albums, never cleared more than, $100,000 on those efforts. And so immediately overnight, we saw that happen and we were like, okay, this billboard we designed, should be a lot bigger of a business. And then we kind of, we had agency clients. So we essentially like, while sunsetting that business, we basically like, just kind of slowly exited those clients over time. It takes a while to do that, but and then went all in on Curios. And then so, for the first year of the platform, we were just in the music business. And then we met Willow Winters. She's a romance novelist. She is an indie author. And she helped me break a lot of assumptions that I had about authors. My assumptions were, well, I buy books, I buy physical books, I buy ebooks, I buy audiobooks. Since I'm paying for content, the authors are probably doing okay. And it's not that they're not doing okay. It's that my thought was, okay, they should be doing well because book sales are still a big part of the industry. Whereas obviously on the music side, nobody's paying for music. So there is, a lot of issues over there. When talking to Willow, I quickly realized, well, it's not necessarily the case. And it depends on the author's situation. But if you're traditionally published, you might be looking at only getting 10% of your sale, and that's a net sale. And then you have platforms like Audible, Amazon, Spotify that then take a huge initial cut. So, you're getting cut. And in the digital world, authors aren't necessarily making what they should, considering how easy it is to send an EPUB file over the web. Or audiobooks, right? MP3 files, fantastically cheap and easy to distribute those out. Despite it being easy, for some reason they're taking either more or an equivalent amount that they would for selling a physical book. So it's one of those things where like, okay, massive disconnect. Let's open the doors in this space. And so we've kind of been doing that in different verticals, just trying to change the way digital content works for the creator. So to get into the second part of the question, what do we offer the creator? We basically offer we're trying to offer the fastest and easiest way for you to get your content online for sale safely. Safely means that you're not just selling an EPUB file or an ebook and then the user is able to download that EPUB file and then send it everywhere, right? Because obviously if you have a very popular book or you write a very good book, which all authors are working to do, the second that I finish that book, I'm going to think, oh, my brother needs to read this. And it's not that you think that you're stealing. You're just like, oh, let me send the file to my brother, kind of thing. And that happens quite a bit. So we want to offer a safe place for everyone to distribute their content directly without them having to be total experts in the space. I think, Colleen, you probably know really well as being an author who sells wide, what it means to try and sell direct and set up your own storefronts, like how many pieces of the puzzle you have to thread together often.
Exactly. And that like leads perfectly into what I want to talk about next, which is direct sales through your websites. And this is going to kind of be a long preface to the question, but so I sell direct through my website, delivering with BookFunnel, which I
Mhm.
found it was kind of difficult to set up the connection between WooCommerce and BookFunnel and like test everything. And I'm okay with doing all of that because I have a long history with technical stuff, and I spent a long time building websites and like going through the huge learning curve of WordPress back in 2017 and like spending days troubleshooting issues that took the sites down and stuff like that. So it can take a lot of effort and a huge learning curve to figure out how to set up your own website and connect everything. Plus, it might cost a lot of money with like a Shopify store, or if you go like WooCommerce Premium or something. So all of those pieces can be overwhelming to authors who don't have the time, the effort, the energy, the money to spend on setting up their own e-commerce sites. But Curios seems to be this really great solution for authors who want to sell direct without jumping through those hoops of doing it all on their own. So let's talk a little bit more about how that works for incorporating Curios into your marketing strategy when you all you want to do is sell books and not spend like decades working on your website.
That's exactly right, and that's kind of when I was going back to that when we discovered like the gap in the market. That's basically the gap. It's not that it was impossible for a creator to sell their content directly, but not every author is like you, where they've got technical savvy or even interest in trying to figure out can you get a solution going. It does have to. It you currently require or historically requires interest because you have to be a little bit passionate about getting that website up and getting the pieces in play. So, that was the mission with Curios is we want creators to be creating primarily. You'll have to obviously be promoting as well. You're going to be fluctuating between creation and promotion, and that is regardless of whether or not you're traditionally published, self-published, however you decide to go, you still will be doing your own promotion, and that's just kind of how it works. So we want the creators to be focusing on, I say three things: creating more work, promoting their work, and then living your life, right? So, living your life any way you see fit, right? It could be with family, it could be doing hobbies, whatever it is. We don't want you to be spending your available free time trying to troubleshoot why you can't get a landing page up on an individual website or something like that, or trying to figure out taxes, global taxes, because someone in Germany happened to buy your book, like crazy scenarios like that. So, long story short, to kind of button this up, essentially that's what we made at Curios is we wanted a way. So we are very good at the technology side. So we wanted a way to make it very easy for creators in an extremely low tech fashion to get your books from your computer or wherever they live online for sale without you having to do anything. You'll have to upload the items, set your description, set your cover image, but that's about it. After they go online, you are able to basically just focus only on promotion. So you get dedicated pages on Curios, you get a dedicated page per book, you get dedicated pages if you have series, you get a dedicated page for yourself as an author. So you have all these links that you can send to your readers. If you're a newsletter, or social posts, or however you can get in front of your readers, you then have links directly to your website or directly to dedicated space on Curio's website, and you can start collecting sales. And then on top of that, we handle all of the other items. So we handle the payment processing, we handle the taxes, we're the merchant of record. So if somebody in Germany does decide to buy your book, we handle that VAT with Germany. So we're the ones who collects those funds and we pay those, and we don't collect it out of your cut either. So if you sell a book for $9.99, that German customer might pay something like $11 to cover taxes, credit card merchant fee, our fee, and we'll then take those extra funds and we'll file the taxes with Germany on your behalf. So all you have is a passive income stream. You'll of course have to file your own taxes as income, but that's it. You get a 1099 from us for how much money you made, and you're done. So and then on top of that, we try to provide the exact same benefits you would have if you were able to thread together those complicated solutions. So you get 100% of the sale, and you also get your customer's contact information. So you get to understand, okay, who's reading your book? And in those areas, we're even growing that further. Our next major rollout, we're going to have tools that let you know, did your purchaser read the book? What part did they stop? And then we're taking that even further. We're trying to see like, okay, can we figure out what parts of the book did they not put it down? So like what chapters did you hold them through? So we're trying to give you the general ethos is, can we give you the powers of the best developers in the world without you having to be that developer, is kind of where we're sitting. So lots of exciting stuff there, but
That like my eyeballs just went wide when you said that, because that means you are going to be tracking read through rates, and read
yes.
through rates is like number one for authors to know if they're doing well from a series perspective, or if they need to change, or like change series, jump genres, like stuff like that.
Exactly right. Yes, we're trying to provide back as much data as possible to you. And then also there's of course the data on landing, right? So it's like how did included in this rollout is going to be how did they get to those pages of yours, right? So you have dedicated pages on Curios Marketplace. How did a reader land on that page? Did they come from Facebook? Did they come from Instagram? Did they come from a newsletter? Did they find you on Google and, click through from Google searches? So that way you can kind of know, well, if I've got a limited marketing budget, where should I apply it? Sort of thing.
Can you talk more about how Curios lets you own the information of the people who purchase? Because
Yes.
if if somebody buys through Amazon, whether it's Kindle Unlimited or just the regular Kindle book, you have no idea who those customers are. They're just a number on a screen saying, "Hey, somebody ordered your book."
Exactly right. Yes. So this was like when we first started the company, we were like, we're going to do two things no matter what. We're going to give the creator 100% of whatever they're selling. And so we were just like, we have to structure the business very uniquely to pull that off. So we're like, from the start, we're going to do that. The other thing we were going to do from the start was make sure that the creator knew exactly who's accessing their content. So anytime you have two options with your content, you can set it up for free, you can give it away for free, or you can sell it. In either case, you will get the exact contact information, the email address at the very least of who accessed that content. So if it's free, they claim it. You find out, okay, who claimed this book? And if it's for sale, then you find out, okay, who bought that book? And that is yours to own. It's not like a Curios ID that you can message in a Curios portal. You literally can download that information. So it's yours to keep, it's yours to use in any way. If you're like, oh, I'm going to then take them from Curios and direct them to my Amazon pages, by all means. We want you empowered as the creator, and that's kind of why we do it. So that's the first thing, is that we do share that information with the author. We do it because they're your reader. And also we do it because you we give 100% of the sale. So I think that these other platforms, they hide that because they know, okay, the second you know who your readers of book one are, you will then go direct for book two. And it doesn't take, a rocket scientist to figure that out. You're always like, oh, cool. Then these are the readers. Well, I'm going to let them know that I can get it here where I don't have to suffer a cut. So that's why they hide that information. But on our platform, we're giving you 100%. So for us, it doesn't matter. And we're just like, have the info. They're your reader also. It's not like, you know, it's like you should know who your readers are. And then generally speaking, the readers do want to hear from the authors. Like having a little bit more of open communication from the source of the content you love is usually something readers like. So
Do you have it in your roadmap for development to include an API connection to different email
yes,
services so that people can just automatically port over those new subscribers?
we do. And we've got them
Mhm.
set up right now with MailChimp and MailerLite, and we're adding Kit in the next couple weeks. And then I forget which one's next on the list, but we're basically just kind of like chipping away at all the different ones. So then essentially what that means in like non-technical talk is you enter an API key for your email service provider, and then automatically your email list is updated with whoever buys your book or claims your book. So you can just have your Curios site be working in the background and your email list is automatically updating. So you're not having to port emails over and make sure your lists are up to date, which can be a bit obnoxious.
So again, making it really simple for authors who don't want to go through all the technical problems of building their own
Exactly.
system.
And this is going to get into some super biased territory. So everyone listening, please take this with a grain of salt. But you can get into some traps when you go with like a Kindle Unlimited, and it has to do with that contact information of the individuals. So if you were to think, okay, I'm going to have a 4-part series, I'm going to put book one on Kindle Unlimited to get extreme exposure to the characters, the novel, etc. And then I'm going to launch book two independently on my own ecosystem, Curios or wherever you want it to be. The second that you try to launch book two, you're going to be launching kind of to nobody because you don't know who read book one. So, A, you're limited in that reach. And that's kind of the obvious piece. B, the other place that you're limited in is the nature of a Kindle Unlimited reader is that they're paying Amazon monthly to have access to unlimited books. So they happen to be a little less likely to buy work in that sense. They're basically like, well, I could buy book two in a series that I loved book one of, or I could just keep reading other series and other books for free over here. And that tendency happens to be like the norm. It's not impossible to convert Kindle Unlimited readers out. Happens all the time, but it is a hurdle you have to overcome as an author. So this is where the bias comes in, but I'm biased in pushing authors to consider selling direct first, even if your sales become very limited in that first run. 10 sales on that first book, that can be 10 sales on your second book, and at least you're starting with one small leg up. And that does compound over time. So generally speaking, authors kind of know that like it takes a while to get your series picked up and read and loved and shared and all those pieces. So the more that you set yourself up foundationally, the stronger that culmination can be. You don't want to become extremely popular and then realize, okay, well, I'm only still being paid per page read in my popularity. You'd want to have that popularity happen with some kind of like exit strategy that, can lead to a lot of success. So very
Yeah.
biased thinking though.
Well, I mean, I'm with you on that.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing about talking to indie authors is that like, I usually don't have to, everyone like understands exactly what I'm talking about when I bring those things up. So
Yeah. So I think that one of the obvious questions that people who are listening probably have is how does Curios make money if the author gets 100% of the sale?
yes, that's a great question. And actually I need to get better at putting that answer in when I talk about the 100% because it almost sits in everyone's mind and they stop hearing anything else that I say. But we charge the buyer a small fee. So again, if it's a $10 book, and say this isn't a complicated like Germany example, it's somebody buying in the United States where there's not a tax on digital content. They buy a $10 book from you, $9.99. You receive $9.99. We'll charge them something like, in this case, it'd probably be like $10.60. Part of that goes to cover the credit card merchant fee, which varies per credit card or per bank that we're using. And then the other part goes to us. So we'll make about 25 cents a book, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the size of the transaction. So we make a small fee there. And then in addition to that, we do have premium tools available as a subscription for authors on our website. So on the studio tool where you manage your items, you can pay monthly to get access to extra tools. And all those tools it's basically like the way we've designed it is if you're going to sell something like more than 10 items a month, you should hop into those tools. They'll help you be a little more effective. They'll help you gather a little more data analytics and be a little bit more streamlined and efficient. If you're not necessarily selling that volume or if you're unsure, the free version gives you all of the core benefits, which are 100% of sale, your customer contact information, full control of your pricing, your content, your rights, those kind of things. That's base. Everybody gets that no matter what. It's more of just like if you want extra tools, API integrations, for instance, advanced data, a little bit more discovery on our website. That's the major one with the most expensive tier is you get premium placement kind of across the site. So sometimes authors want to do a lot of their own promotion and sometimes they don't. It's basically like, well, if you're going to do a lot of your own promotion, you don't necessarily need to pay for the monthly subscriptions. If you don't want to do as much of that, then the monthly subscriptions will still get you a lot of exposure without having to necessarily pay. So that's kind of how
So,
those break up. But that's where we make our money. So sometimes
yeah.
subscription, and then anytime there's a transaction on the site.
Okay. So for authors who start out free, and let's say they're in there for like maybe 3 to 6 months and they start picking up sales and they decide to jump onto one of the subscriptions, would all of that historical data show up in the analytics from the beginning, or would it start from when they start paying?
I think it's designed to start from when they start paying, but I think the reality is probably that it will show up.
Okay. Because my engineer brain is like, I want to know from the beginning how things did, not just from when I
My
started paying the money.
I'd have to actually check on that. But yeah, I think the intention is to have it start, but I think the reality is, like I said, it's going to be at all time.
Okay.
So if that does change on you, just know that's because that was always our intention. But, you know, I think
Okay.
that it's actually going to be live. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned Willow Winters is the one who got you more into the ebook side of things. Besides
Yes.
her, or maybe I guess including her, can you share some success stories about indie authors who have had really good experiences with Curios?
Yeah, she's my favorite success story because we were talking to her just kind of it was very casual. It's like exploratory, should we get into the book's vertical? And she was like, she's very open to trying new stuff. She's kind of like famous for being the first mover on all platforms. So she was like, "Oh, I'll put a book on your site. We'll just see how it does." And we're like, "Thank you. That'll help us beta test how this stuff works." So this was like, 1 week into the conversation, she's going to do one book, not broadcast it to anybody. We can just kind of test and play around with a full audiobook file and an EPUB file. And then in that time period, in this like 1 week time period, she gets deplatformed on YouTube. She had over 100,000 subscribers, and YouTube just cut her out because she's a romance writer. So they deemed her content pornographic, even though no visual pornography, right? It was spicy audiobooks, but she had all the proper age restrictions and things that YouTube, recommends anyone do. She was in full compliance there, and they just cut her account overnight. So they just said no more, done. She lost 100,000 subscribers, and those subscribers were listening to her audiobooks, like a lot of her back catalog stuff. So not her latest things, but like this was a place where Willow was like, I'm just going to reward fans who want to listen to my books. They can. And they lost access. Some of them were like mid-book, sort of thing. So she was obviously, pretty upset with YouTube. And since we were having the conversation with her already, she was like, I'm bringing all these books to Curios. I'm so upset with YouTube. We were like, oh, that's awesome. Great. Let's do it. And so she brings them all on. And then she announces on her Instagram, which was about 230,000 followers. She announces, like, I'm bringing all these books to Curios. You can get them all for free on Curios. I'm super upset with YouTube. They deplatformed me, gave the whole story. And then she had, it was, I think, 110,000 emails kind of came from that. And it was like, she gave like 6 posts, right? And she has a big base, but converting that much of her base into email addresses was an amazing thing for her. If you can imagine, right? Like going from an Instagram where your posts, if anyone doesn't know, when you post on Instagram, it's on average about 6 to 10% of your followers will see any given post. And if you post something like 6 times, or even say 10 times, it's not that you're going to reach 100% either. They'll still throttle who sees what. So there'll be a percentage of your followers who won't see the post. So if you're trying to say, okay, come buy my new book, not every one of your followers will see it on Instagram. It's kind of an inefficient platform for that. And it's because obviously, like, people follow a lot of folks. So their feed can't be clogged with, post after post from the same person. Creates a bad user experience in Instagram's mind, so that's why they throttle it. But the emails go out to the inbox. They will make it to their inbox. Whether they open it or not, who knows? But that open rate is more like 40, 50% as opposed to 6 to 10% that you get on Instagram. So the power of what she did is pretty impressive. Going from, 230,000 followers to 110,000 email addresses is a humongous shift in power that Willow then has, and just reach. It's not necessarily she's trying to power over her readers. It's just reach. She can reach the readers and let them know information that they do want to know. So it's kind of a fun thing. So that was a really great success story. And then she ran that free campaign for like, I think, a week. And then she just switched them all to $1 a pop. And she's been getting sales every single day. So, I mean, like, there has not been a day that's gone by that she hasn't gotten sales on her platform. She gets 100% of that sale. It's all kind of good stuff, And then readers get access to a long audiobook, like 10 hours for $1. It's a good deal all around.
That is insane. Thinking about
Yes.
going from being throttled, like not just throttled on YouTube, because not even YouTube will show all of your stuff to the subscribers. Sometimes
That's
people will
right.
get removed from subscriptions or notifications that get turned off, and you actually have to go actively search for things. But man, cutting people off mid-book.
Gosh, cutting it off mid, it's kind of crazy. And then also, like, they don't allow for rectification, which is like one of the annoying things with them. They're just like, you're banned, you're out. And they don't necessarily, they're kind of too big to care in some situations. They're like, yes, 100,000 subscribers were lost, but they'll still be on YouTube and other places. We're not going to lose the individuals. So they kind of, they just really don't care. And then the same thing happens. It's like that platform risk does exist on all platforms, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So Instagram, you could get taken off of Instagram, lose access to your folks there. Kindle Unlimited, you can lose access to Kindle Unlimited. It could be, something that you do. You could accidentally be putting your book somewhere and you forgot that it was up on some obscure website and Kindle finds it and then they ban you for life and then you're out. So the platform risk is a real thing, and that's something we're trying to solve too, is just have a permissionless place for you to sell your content direct. So the worst case, you've got a place. That's kind of where we sit. So that's our favorite story. And it's fun that she also is the first one. That's also particularly fun. And then we've had several other authors then kind of come on since then. And we just love when sales happen. Because getting the full amount, it's a big change. Paid per page read on Kindle Unlimited requires the reader to actually make it all the way through the book for you to get the full amount of value for your work. If they stop because they get too busy to read or whatever the situation is, you stop making your money. But when you sell the book up front, you get the full amount for the book, whether they read it or not, and it's a nice
Yeah.
side of the coin to be on. And I could talk for a long time about that because of the music history we have about the dangers, but it's up to you if you want to
I,
go there.
I mean, this might end up being a much longer episode than I planned, but it goes back to so with Amazon now, they have changed their ebook agreement so that if you are purchasing a Kindle book, whether it's through Kindle Unlimited or just straight Kindle, you are not purchasing a copy of that book. You are purchasing the rights to view a copy of that book,
That's right.
which it's a subtle difference that I don't think a lot of readers have really caught on to or authors have caught on to yet. But that means that if Amazon decides to pull that book for any reason, you are losing access to it on your Kindle unless your Kindle is in airplane mode all the time, which I have done.
Yep.
That's a nice trick.
Yes.
But with any other, it's the same thing with any other platform that you're selling on, right? If
Yes.
if that platform decides that your book is not appropriate anymore, or they don't like or they don't agree with it, then they can yank it. But
That's right.
if you're selling direct through Curios or you're selling direct through BookFunnel or something like that, you are delivering the actual book into the hands of the reader, so they actually own that file,
That's
and they
exactly
can do
right.
whatever they want with that file.
Yes, they're much more empowered as readers on platforms like BookFunnel, platforms like Curios, and it's, I think it has a lot to do with being founder-led companies, right? BookFunnel is led by an author, Damon.
Yep.
He cares about readers. And then Curios is a founder-led company. I'm one of the founders, and then the other founder is an ex-musician named Grant. He was in the bands Lifehouse and Dawes. That's where the love of the music side came in. That's why we hit them first. But I'm an avid reader, and it's like I have physical books. I like the ownership of the physical book, and I do know as a technologist, I know exactly what it means when I buy content on Amazon.
Yeah.
Same for Amazon videos. If you buy a movie, those movies do go away all the time. They
Yep.
don't actually have the rights to give that to you for all of time.
And like
So
even on Amazon Prime, they might have a series like a TV series on Prime for, I don't know, 6 months, and then it goes bye-bye. And if you're in the middle of watching Stargate SG-1, which happened to us, and they take it
yes,
off, it's like you can't finish
yes.
it. Oh, yep.
But that happens, and it
It
happens a
does.
lot. It's not uncommon in any way. And so it's just kind of strange to be like, well, I am paying for content, but then I don't own it. That's where the main issues of digital have kind of come about. Is like you had launch into digital, it was a very exciting time, and then piracy took over. And then everyone like owned without paying or owned without like agreeing with the creator to own that content. So the response was pretty severe, where it was like, okay, we'll just give everything away for free and we'll monetize via ads or monetize via subscriptions. And then we'll pay per page read or per minute listened to. And we'll just change the model because everything got so messed up with the piracy phase. Well, the problem with that is like the technology has shifted to where you can bring back safety and security without having to do these ad-based models.
Yeah.
But no platform decided to bring it to light. It's just kind of like, oh, well, our models work really well for us as a platform. Why change things?
I mean, we're in a different era than the LimeWire years, which was my era.
Yes. Yes, mine too. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And all the young people listening probably have no idea what LimeWire even was, but those were the days where you basically just pirated
You
pirated
pirated
songs,
everything, and everyone
pirated
pirated
everything.
everything. And on the consumer side, it was quite exciting. I will not lie. It
Oh,
was
of
like, oh
course.
my gosh, I have all the music in the world, you know, one one of those things. But that's exactly right. We're in a more mature internet nowadays. Like, so encryption, security, digital rights management, those things, all those tools exist really well. So you're not at the same risk, you know, but the models are persisting from when there was a lot of risk, and that's kind of a
Yeah.
problem.
So people who are let's go back to talking about Kindle Unlimited for a second.
Sure.
If there are authors who are in Kindle Unlimited, they are getting disenfranchised with the Amazon machine. What would you say to those authors who want to get out of that and how to best go about making that transition?
Yes, yeah. And this is a very complicated topic. And then again, understand how much bias I'm going to have. So the main thing I want to get across is as an author, make the best decision for yourself. So if you're making money on Kindle Unlimited and you're apprehensive about losing that income, don't just go turning it all off and then switching over to a direct model, hoping that it all works out in the same way. You want to be strategic about it, and then I can kind of go through some ideas. But if you are super disenfranchised, your page reads are going down, the amount you're making isn't worth you being there anymore, I definitely recommend trying a direct solution. It doesn't have to be Curios by any means. There's lots of good options out there. I think that we're the fastest and easiest, and we're trying to be the best, but it's your decision, of course. So you can always try going direct. You don't have to do it for your entire catalog of content. You can just take maybe the book that's performing the least, right? Put it up onto Curios for free. It's like, well, if you're not making any money on Kindle Unlimited, you could try going to Curios for free with it and see if you can start aggregating email addresses, right? And so there's a lot of strategic ways you can approach it. The easiest way is to take non-ebook files and put them on Curios. So audiobook versions can go onto Curios, and then you can start, again, building email lists. You can start opening the doors to direct, which take a little while to open. You'll have to do a little bit more promotion on social medias. You might have to start curating a newsletter back again, start communicating with any existing newsletter or emails that you've got, start re-nurturing that direct connection. So you can do that without leaving Kindle Unlimited by bringing audiobooks over, or you can bring like special stuff. You could bring bookmarks, you could bring fan art for your characters. There's all sorts of things you could do. You could do like unreleased chapters, or even like your ideas as an author. Like you can kind of like draft through, okay, here's my story arcs and stuff for this book. So somebody who's already read the book can come get like fan-based content, and you can just kind of start engaging in those ways. And then when you realize, okay, my engagement is strong enough, I now have less risk of bringing things direct. Similarly, as you write and you have new releases coming out, you can be like, okay, I've got engagement built up in a direct way. I can have a new release go direct with the new release for a certain time period. And then obviously you can turn that off and bring it to Kindle Unlimited too. So you can kind of go forward and backward both times. So there's a lot of options. I did write an article about this on curios.com, basically like what to do if you're in KU, what options do you have? So like I said, there's a lot of ways to go about it. And the main thing I want to stress is like you don't have to necessarily go out of KU. There's a lot of things you can do on Curios to start, and then you can go back and forth, right? Another great strategy is pre-order. You can run a pre-order campaign on a Kickstarter or a Curios, sell books to your direct audience, make 100% of your funds, or whatever Kickstarter has. I think it's not quite 100%, but it's close. You make 100% of your funds, and then to the people you know, and then you can go to Kindle Unlimited for discovery, sort of scenarios. So it's not just the one way in and out. You can go direct, go back to KU, leave KU, go direct. Those kind of scenarios, you can kind of run those back and forth. So
Because if I'm not mistaken, KU is exclusive 90 days at a time, so you have to like keep re-enrolling, right?
that's exactly right. You have to keep re-enrolling, and you have to be, when you want to unenroll, you have to wait for that contractual time period to end, and
Yeah.
then you can take your book out. And you do want to be careful with that, right? Because KU will ban you if you've got the book selling somewhere else, and then you're out of luck, which I would view as like a blessing in disguise because of my bias. But again, I do understand that that would be a sad thing. Anytime you lose income as a creator, it's a sad thing, and we don't necessarily want that to be the case. We just want authors to grow in a more foundational way.
Yeah, and you gave me more ideas for things to use Curios for. Like I hadn't even thought about like delivering bonus chapters or fan art or anything like that through it, but that's perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, it can be any digital content. So we even have an author, I think she's in the process of having like an exit interview with one of her characters. So it's like her character is like, how like it's like after a sports game or whatever it is, they interview the athlete about what happened in the game. It's like similar to that, where she's like interviewing the character of their reactions to what happened in the book, which is just like super fun stuff. And it's just an easy way, it's an easy platform to put any kind of digital content out there.
That
So
is hilarious. And now something else that I want to do with
yes,
my characters. Be
exactly.
like, so how do you feel
Exit
about all the stuff I
interviews.
put you through?
Yeah, exactly. It's like pretty rotten. You could have thrown me a bone here or there,
Right? Uh,
Pretty good.
okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about was Curios has a brand new affiliate program. And
Yes.
I'm part of that, and you'll be able to find the link to that in the description if you want to join Curios through my affiliate link. That is available in the description of the podcast. But tell our listeners more about how that works and how they can sign up for Curios through that.
Yes. So the way that it works right now, we're we're ending our season one of the Creator Fund. So the Creator Fund is basically like our marketing and advertising budget and campaign. I'll kind of go into that a little bit. But essentially, you as the author, if you follow Colleen's affiliate link, you'll get $50 upon signing up as a bonus from us. And then Colleen will get a bonus for bringing you to the platform. So both of you guys will make money, which is a great thing. So please go through the affiliate link so that Colleen can earn on this as well, which would be a nice way to kind of spread the wealth. But then the season two of the Creator Fund is coming, and that's going to then reduce that amount to $25 for signing up, I think, or $20 for signing up. But you have a lot more bonuses of things that you can do to earn on the platform. So I'll get into the Creator Fund because that's a little bit of a thing. When we started the company, we've got strong funding. So we were like, okay, we're going to spend, upwards of $1 million on a marketing campaign. And when we were scheduling the campaign out and working with agencies on how to do the ads and how to attract musicians, comedians, authors, we realized the bulk majority of that money is going to go to Facebook or Meta, and it's going to go to Google. And at the end of the day, we'll hope to have a lot of creators on the platform, but the money spent does not go to the creators, which is like completely opposite of our entire ethos as a company. So we're like, okay, how can we do this in a way that works? And we were very fortunate to be in the room at the time with a musician, and he's like a little stonier of a person. And he was like, well, hey man, you could just give me the money that you would have spent on ads to get me to come to the platform. And we are like, that's actually a good idea, So we figured out a way to do it. So it's basically like, instead of us giving the money to Facebook and Google to try and convince you to come on, if you do come to the platform, we will just give you the money that we would have spent. And that's the root of the platform. So essentially, when you come to Curios, especially through an affiliate link, you then, upon signing up, publishing an item, and then promoting it, you'll get a block of funds from us. Every time you get a sale, you'll get some more funds from us, or a bunch of claims, you get funds. And there's all kinds of tiers that you can do to earn on the platform. So the maximum amount we're currently giving out is $12,000. And that's, if you hit that, you can do a lot of things. You get a lot of sales or a lot of claims. And then there's a lot of other marketing components that you'll do by basically like promoting the books and things like that. But it's our way of getting the word out about Curios and getting the funds we would have spent to do that into the hands of what we think are the right people, right? We want that to go to creators. We think that they will use the money much better than Facebook, Google, Amazon would use them, Yeah. It's easy to say that to creators because they're just like, yes, it would be a much better way to spend that money,
It totally is, but just like it's such a counterintuitive business model and counterintuitive way of thinking about this after so many years of the Amazons and the Ingram Sparks and like all of those places that have dominated the market for so long that we need something fresh and new, and like it's a breath of fresh air is honestly what it is. And so I'm glad that Curios is doing this, and I'm glad that I bumped into you at Author Nation, which
Yes.
was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I think you asked a question about like specifically being like a wide author, and I was like, oh, I should talk to her after just to make sure like A, that you know about us, and B, I want to pick your brain about a bunch of different things. So yeah, happy for that too. But
Yep.
yeah,
Then we ended up
thank
doing
you
that
for that.
anyway.
That's it's a really nice compliment to hear from our side because we are working very hard to deeply change the industry, and it has taken, as a company, we've you know foundationally done things extremely differently because like the thesis is you can't take the same roads to a new destination. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, well, as a company, if we raise funds from venture capital is going to require us to take a cut from the creator. So it's going to go against our very first, primary pillar of our company. So even in the fundraising, we had to do things differently. We did a crowd fund. There's a way to do a crowd fund where you don't have to have accredited investors. So we raised $5 million from everybody, average people that believed in our mission. And that's enabled us to serve the creators first and foremost. It's basically like, well, our investor base wants to change the way this works too. It's not necessarily like, well, our investors want one thing and the creators want another, and now we're going to try to marry those as a company. It's the investors want to empower the creators want more empowerment and more access to their customers, and just to be able to thrive in the digital age. And then we, of course, want that too. So it's kind of been nice to be able to marry all of these things and all these motivations at the same time in the same place. So that's kind of been what's helped us, be different. So, and just be creator first. I also think every platform has been consumer first to a bit of a fault. And it's like, yes, while Spotify is a wonderful listening experience as a consumer, Kindle Unlimited is a wonderful reading experience as a reader. At a certain level, it stops serving the creator. And then as a consumer, it changes. You have authors writing less books. You have musicians disbanding. Their bands will disband, or they'll stop being in bands and they'll start being individual performers, which is something you see a lot right now, right? The most famous musicians, they're all one name musicians, and it has to do with a bit of perversion in the industry, as opposed to when the industry is healthy, you have bands and you have things like that, and you have communities working together. So you kind of notice those perversions over time, and that leads to a worse consumer experience. Music sounding the same, movies being all remakes or sequels and things like that. And it's like,
Don't get me started.
I know. It's like, but that's the thing is you like look at the box office and you're just like, okay, I've seen all these movies in different forms before. It's like, okay, Jurassic Park, the big movie this summer. We've seen a lot of Jurassic Park. And like, don't get me wrong, I love dinosaurs, but it's like it's not exciting anymore, you know? So when you can bring things back to the creators, we're hoping for a more exciting future of content too. And
Okay.
again, I want to be very clear that obviously please do whatever is best for you. We're not encouraging you to give up income or whatever it is. But the main encouragement I want to do is encourage authors to be very conscious of where their work does go. When you do upload to a Kindle Unlimited, you are letting Amazon know that you're okay with their rate that they're paying per page read, with the model of paying per page read, with not knowing your customer and all those things. You basically are giving them a signal that they're doing the right thing over there. So they're not going to change their model when they're getting all those positive signals. So if you do want to change the industry, you're going to have to kind of collaborate as authors and decide, okay, well, what future do you want to see? We're obviously trying to present one certain future. Doesn't have to be ours. You don't have to join ours, but just be very conscious of where the work goes and how you're distributing the work, just so that the future you see doesn't end up being one of music industry where, you're not making money for your work anymore. And I know that authors aren't necessarily all intentional on just making money. Most of the time, it's you want to get the work out there. You've got a story inside. You want to get it out. But at some level, there is a business element to it, and making sure that business is healthy enough to support yourself or even to support getting more work to your readers, kind of thing, is what we encourage. So just be conscious and
Yeah.
think about the decisions of where your content goes. The wonderful thing is you are in control. You wrote the book. You have the rights. Until you give those up, you get to decide what happens to that work. So that is a nice thing. So just, take a moment in that before you make decisions there. It's kind of what we encourage.
And that's not to say that you can't still put it up on places like Amazon does regular KDP Kindle
Right.
or Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital or Book Funnel. Like have the book in all of the places, but know that if you are going to be focusing on direct sales, then pick one of those things, whether it's Curios, Book Funnel, whatever. Pick one to focus on instead of trying to shotgun everything. And
Yes.
when you do that, the other places will start to sell books as well. So
Yes.
there have been phenomenons where people are spending money on ads to direct sales on a website. Like maybe they're spending money on Facebook ads to direct sales. So they're selling direct with paperbacks, ebooks, whatever. At the same time, they are ending up picking up more sales through Amazon. Even though there's
Yes.
no even though there's no ads going to Amazon, they are still getting more sales on Amazon when you're having ads or you're selling direct. So just know that it's a kind of this weird, like magical ecosystem where if you're
Yes.
selling well in one place, you'll sell well in all of them.
Yes, exactly. And that's like, yeah. I actually do love that you include that, because as an author, that's what we like to encourage is being wide. Take up the digital real estate that you can, so that you allow for serendipity. It's like increasing that luck surface area. If you're in all these places, somebody will see your book, and then they have an opportunity to buy it. And that's what we think is super important. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay, I could talk to you forever.
Yep.
But we do need to wrap this up. So, where can listeners connect with you in particular, or where can they learn more about Curios besides the affiliate link in the description?
Yes. So, especially for authors, if you want to reach out and walk through the platform or you have specific questions, you can meet with me anytime at curios.com/meet Greg. So that opens a scheduling portal. You can basically pick whatever time is convenient for you. And I do want to meet with all of you. I want to meet, hear your stories, advise in, boutique situations because everyone's got their own situation. Happy to offer my unsolicited advice on what to do. And then as Curios, you can follow us on Instagram at Join Curios. You can follow on the website just by going to curios.com. The author tools are on studio.curios.com. If you sign up through there and you don't even upload, you'll then enter our system and you can see at the very least some updates about the platform and when different things are going live, which is a fun thing to keep track of. But yeah, I think those are probably good. Oh, my direct email, of course, greg@curios.com. You can always reach out to me direct there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I always enjoy speaking with you. So yeah, looking forward to the next time too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That is it for today's episode. Thank you for joining us. And remember, the first draft is supposed to be garbage. The Novel Writing Podcast is a production of Colleen Mitchell Writes. For more writing resources, including Curios, Tally Inc. author services, and the 60-day novel writing challenge, check out the links in the description.